Okay, good afternoon, everyone. And thanks for that. Woohoo! I paid you for that, so please see me afterwards so I can give you some, something in the back pocket. Dreams do come true, right? One of my dreams as a young boy growing up was I would love to have the opportunity to be on stage at the Artscape Theatre. Come on. Right, so for those of you that are dreamers, don't stop dreaming. I must be honest, I thought I would be singing or doing something a little bit more dramatic, but I'm happy to be here. Now, one of the great innovators and thought leaders of my time, and someone that I know very, very well, was my late grandmother. She was someone that was so creative. I mean, before the whole kind of crowdsourcing thing was a thing, she did crowdsourcing, right? Today, people are talking about, and I'm using all the buzzwords, the lean startup. She did lean startup before lean startup was a thing, right? Talk about MVPs, she did all of those things. I remember one morning being woken up. Now, I grew up on the Cape Flats. Anybody from the Cape Flats in the house? Only 2 years. Okay, we need to change that. And she woke me up, it's another school day, and of course, at the time, waking up, she gave me a glass. And the reason why I got a glass was because we lived in the little structure, our home, and next to our home was our neighbor's home. So if you take the glass and you put it up against the wall, you can actually listen to your neighbor's conversation. Now, because we never had a television, she was very creative in telling me she knew that the neighbor's television set was next to that wall. And at exactly 5 to 7, I would be able to hear the weather report. So that I would know what to wear so that I don't wear unnecessary clothes because we have to save money. Right? Yeah, very creative. And of course, if you wanted to listen to your neighbor's conversation, you need to get a taller glass. So while I would do these kind of things, she would always think of creative ways to give us as a family hope. Many times what we'll find is in the mornings, when there was no breakfast, she would boil some water, and she would crowdsource some herbs and something from the neighbor's garden, and boil the herbs so that even though there's no food to eat now, I would smell something delicious that I know is going to come later when I come from school. Now that is really, she bootstrapped, right? And the one thing that I learned from my grandmother was that when someone is infused with hope, then they have a certainty in today and they have an expectation in tomorrow. And hope can be very lethal if there's an absence of hope. We see that every day in the work that I do. And today, thinking about the importance of hope, and this journey of hope really got me to the place which is RLabs. Now, for those of you who don't know, the work that we do is based in the most difficult of communities. Right? I firmly believe that diamonds do come from the rough. Right? That's a fact. So for us, it was important that the communities that we work in are communities where people have lost hope. And it started off right down, like I said, on the Cape Flats. We've got very, very creative people. Before Facebook did the whole kind of thing, writing on the wall thing, our gangs were writing on the walls already. All right? Man, some of you are studying marketing and branding. Come and speak to a gangster. These guys will die for their brand. Now, for real. Right? So these are the kind of people that have all these skill sets about logistics, distribution, the whole kind of thing about their feedback loop. They've got it nailed. Right? You can literally do your MBA on the Cape Flats and in the townships. No, trust me, you can see that you do it. But in the midst of all of these things, there's a lot of heartache. We have people that are suffering, people who have lost hope. I remember an encounter with a young 8-year-old boy, and he was supposed to be at school. And when I asked him, why are you not at school? He told me he wants to find work because he wants money. And I thought, why is an 8-year-old looking for a job? And when I asked him, so what are you going to do with the money? He told me he wants to buy bread for his sister at home, his 5-year-old sister, and he wants to purchase himself some shoes because his mom is high on drugs and his dad is in prison. And a lot of these kind of challenges we face in our communities. So when we started RLabs, it was this very simple task. It was all about how do we instill hope in our community, in people where people have lost hope. And the way we do that is simply through this. We provide people with We equip them with skills, and I'll share a little bit more about how we do that. At the same time, we want to create environments where they feel that they can actually create new innovations. They can solve their own community challenges. And lastly, we look at how do we infuse the whole culture of entrepreneurship. Now, naturally, in our townships, people do have an entrepreneurial culture. Seriously, I mean, they do. I mean, I've seen some, I mean, the other day, 2 weeks ago, I saw two guys who actually stole a bus stop. Have you ever seen a bus stop being moved on a trolley? Like, because they knew they were going to go and sell that metal, right? And these guys are very creative. And for us, it was how do you begin to shift and change that whole kind of creativity into something that can be positive? Now, like I've mentioned, in our communities, you have a number of community experts. People that understand the challenges and the problems. Who best knows how to solve the problem of poverty than someone who lives in poverty? But yet, many times, we are not willing or giving the individuals the opportunity to solve their own problems. To give you an example, one of my favorite examples actually is a guy, and he was unemployed for about 7-8 years. And chatting to him, and I asked him, so you're unemployed for 8 years, what is the biggest problem in your community? And he said, it's unemployment. And I said, okay, unemployment is a big problem. And when he said that, I got so excited. I was happy that unemployment was a big problem for him in his community. Because and I explained to him that in any other industry, if you have 8 years experience in something, you become a consultant. You've got 8 years experience in being unemployed. Who better can solve and address the challenge of unemployment? Someone who lives it on a day-to-day basis. Needless to say, he went on this journey to try and solve the problem. And through this, a lot of the times, our community experts become what we call our hope givers. And these are individuals that do things that goes beyond our understanding. Now, on this image, there's a guy that they were the BBC thing. He and a team, and one of his team members, I know is in the audience, they created a technology. Now, these are young people from the Cape Flats and the townships are built a technology that's being used by the BBC. Now, that is pretty cool. I mean, when I was growing up, I couldn't even tune into the BBC because we had those bunny aerials, right? But that, for me, is the power of when you are allowing people from the community to start thinking about how they can solve challenges. The young man there with on the top with the dreads, a subsistence farmer in Botswana. And for him, he always felt that a lot of people that are doing farming are just not having access to the real information. So he was fortunate enough that his family had a cow, and he went and he asked his mother, can they sell the cow? Because he would like to start his own farmer's publication. Now you can imagine the mother, what? Sell a cow? Our only cow? And today he's got a subscription of 50,000 farmers subscribing to his newspaper. And many of these things are young people from our communities that are actually driving change and trying to solve real issues that they're facing. Now, there are 3 things that I believe might be relevant to you as well, that we've learned in our journey at RLabs. The first thing is you have to increase the value of people. Now, what does that really mean? So one thing could be you can skill them up, and we do a number of different training programs, from young people to working with kids. Our oldest graduate that we've ever had was 92 years old. Right? She did a Google Apps course. One of our facilitators is actually 82 years old. Right? So, I mean, she still facilitates teaching people about apps. But the idea is, how do you begin to let people believe that I can think beyond my circumstances? And that is where hope is such a powerful tool. Where the minute the person goes for, and I mean, we know, I'm sure if I ask you, how many of you've gone and you've acquired a new skill, and now all of a sudden you struggle to find employment or struggling to find a way of economically empowering yourself, you do become frustrated. You do lose hope. And the powerful thing about this is that if you enable people to actually see that I can, even though I've got the skill is not good enough. It's about me as a person that understand that I can do more than just the skill. And increasing the value for us has been phenomenal. There was another story of a young boy who dropped out of school. And The one thing that frustrates him was the frustration of people. Now, this is in Tanzania, in a town called Iringa. And the thing that frustrated him the most was people were throwing plastic bottles all over the place in this town. And when we spoke to him, we told him he's now learned a little bit about technology, he's now learned about entrepreneurship and all of those skills. We then asked him, why don't you solve the problem in your community? And he started thinking, should he do recycling? What can he do to solve the problem? And eventually, he went on the internet and he found a YouTube video of a guy that was building a swimming pool using plastic bottles. And he was like amazed, wow, not that he needs a swimming pool, but he could use the same methodology to build water tanks. So he started this business. He's 17 years old. He and another young girl, I think she's about 16 or 17 as well. And they started this little enterprise where they were building water tanks for NGOs, for faith-based organizations, for schools in the town. And immediately they employed, within 12 months, they were employing 15 other young people. And the idea was birthed because his value increased. He started seeing beyond just his circumstances. So for those of you, as you're building your companies, it's important to realize that whenever you do any business that increases the value of people, your business will do well. The second thing, the lesson that we've learned is that once hope is instilled, once someone all of a sudden has an idea of how they can do things, is you have to accelerate that hope. And we do that through what we call an innovation lab. It's very much kind of like a technology lab, and an innovation lab where people who has good ideas can actually come and turn those ideas into reality. I'm pretty sure if I have to ask you now in this room, how many of you have ever had a good idea? Okay, raise your hand. How many of you have ever had a good idea? Okay, there's a couple of hands going up. How many of you have ever had a good idea and you did nothing about it? Okay, there's more hands. And then later on, someone else steals your idea. Has it ever happened to you? All the time, right? And you say, but that was my idea. So for many people in our communities, they've got great ideas of how they can solve their own problems. But yet, they don't get the opportunities to actually solve it. And we create this environment where we accelerate that capability for them through this kind of innovation lab thing. And then the third lesson that we've learned is simply you have to create an enabling environment. Now, this image is one of the cafes that we have and with a number of partnerships. But we've believed that when a person comes into our space, we make sure that they feel dignity. Many times, we don't realize the power of dignity. The power of knowing that it doesn't matter if who you are, where you come from, you are important to us. And that environment is very, very important. And not only is it an environment where you feel that it doesn't matter my circumstances is not going to be dictated, it's not going to dictate my destiny or my future. And when they come into this space, we embrace them, we then work with the young people and the young women as well. And through all of this, we then begin to see transformation and change. So never underestimate the power of an enabling environment. But at the same time, the environment now also allows them to access networks where they can work with the likes of the Silicon Cape, with a number of the partners that's in this room as well. So you need to make sure, and especially if you want to turn the tide, and I'll be very blunt and open here, unfortunately, for a lot of young kids and young people, or aspiring entrepreneurs in the townships and in the places like the Cape Flats, accessing networks are very difficult. And truth be told, many times we make it difficult. And so we have to make sure that if we really want to see the next level of entrepreneurship happening within our country and on this continent, we need to create enabling environments. So that is a very, very powerful thing in order to kind of see success. And then, of course, not only did we do the work on the Cape Flats and in the townships locally, we've also expanded the work that we've done. Because hope not shared is not real hope. You have to share hope. You have to make hope contagious. And that was part of our mission. Because I'm tired. I'm tired of seeing poverty having a monopoly on this continent. I'm tired of seeing young people, children that are born today, not having a hope or a future. And for me, the important thing is we have to make hope contagious. And in this room, we have most probably some of the greatest minds on the planet, right? And every single one of you can actually make the difference. You can be the change. You can make the change. It doesn't matter how small it is. Because today, I'm not asking you to change the entire world. I'm only asking you change one person's world. That will make a world of a difference. So to conclude, I'll leave you with a quote by, not a quote yet. These are just some of the impact. Apparently, I need to have numbers. So there's numbers. For those of you that think we are just doing things, over the last 7 years since we started, we've had over 60,000 jobs created and accessed. There's a small consulting firm called McKinsey. Don't know if you heard of them. We had some work with some of the consultants, and they actually did a study where they found that the economic value created by RLabs in the Western Cape region was just over $22 million. And I mean, these things for me is not the important thing. It's really seeing the transformation in the lives of people. So this is the quote that I really want to leave you with. And it's by Theodore Roosevelt, right? About 106 years ago. He simply was this quote about the man in the arena. And the only thing I want to encourage you is that the only time when credit is due is when you are the man or the woman in the arena and who give your all to a worthy cause. So my last question to you is, what are you fighting for? Thank you.